Welcome to the Women Transportation series, and this is actually the first installment of this series this semester. And we'll showcase Elaine, who is a technical director of traffic and transportation at AKRF. Elaine is a technical director with AKRF in White Plains, and he's also a licensed PE professional engineer in the state of New York. He grew up in New York City and earned her bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the Cooper Union back to 2014. The professional experience includes traffic engineering, planning, and design for large projects such as the Temple Sea Bridge replacement, Bayonne Bridge Race the Road, as well as LaGuardia Airport redevelopment. Elaine's current work involves improving communities through thoughtful complete street design, and I believe that is one of the topics today, and municipal traffic engineering in Westchester and throughout the Hudson Valley. She is a member of the Leadership ITE class of 2020 and the 2022 Institute of Transport Engineer ITE Young Leader to Follow. Elaine is also a prolific volunteer with the ITE STEM education advocate. I've been working with Elaine for many years in terms of STEM and ITE initiatives, student engagement initiative. And she's also an adoption counselor for New York City cat adoption and rescue group.
Yeah, so if you want a cat,
With that, I'm going to pass it to Elaine for her to discuss about the Complete Street project that she's been doing, as well as her career.
Great. Thank you so much, Jenny, and thank you all for having me here today.
You would mute yours.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Jenny, and thank you all for having me here today. I'm really excited to be here. So what I'm going to talk about first is my career, everything I've done from, I guess, 2014 to now. I've been working professionally for 9 years. And then I'll go through Complete Streets and one of my recent projects that I've had. I want this to be interactive, so feel free to stop me at any point and ask questions if you have any. Hopefully this will work. No? Okay. So I actually grew up in New York City. This is a photo I took when I was flying back from Georgia, visiting my brother at Georgia Tech. But I grew up here, I was born and raised here, I went to high school here, and from that, transportation changed my life. I grew up taking the train everywhere, I grew up walking everywhere, and how did I become a traffic engineer? Because I don't even know how to drive, if I'm being completely honest with you all. But I feel like that's typical of someone who grew up in New York City in their 30s. I mean, for me, I went to Cooper Union. I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do for almost the entire 4 years. It wasn't until my very last year when I took a class in urban transportation planning that I finally clicked in my head that I really found my passion. From there, first semester senior year actually, from there I really started to gear the rest of my college track toward transportation because I knew that was what my ultimate goal. I actually went to my very first ITE meeting in October 2013, so exactly 10 years ago, and that was what really cemented me in this industry. You can see me right there with my Cooper Union hoodie. So after graduating from college, I started my career at HDR, which is a very large engineering firm. This is a photo from, I think, 2015 or 2016, the Young Professionals group, where you and a bunch of people in their 20s and 30s would hang out and drink and talk about your projects. It was a ton of fun. But at the same time, I spent 4 years there. I mostly worked on these huge mega projects like the Tappan Zee Bridge, LaGuardia Airport, Bayonne Bridge. Those were really great projects and really interesting. It helped me hone my design skills, my planning skills, but ultimately I felt like my work was just kind of boring. My work ended up being a lot of huge master plans that just didn't change anything in the world. It would be like a 500-page report that just sat on someone's shelf for years and no one even bothered to read it. So I just lost my way for a bit. And then I decided, hey, it's time for a change. I joined AKRF, and AKRF is a a Westchester, New York City-based environmental planning firm. We specialize in environmental planning, traffic and transportation engineering, and civil roadway design. Right now, a lot of my projects are local. I'm working on White Plains-based projects. So that means I'm working with local villages, towns, counties, on small projects. So nothing as big as the Tappan Zee Bridge. $4 billion, never gonna get close. My projects are now $5,000. Smaller budget, tighter budget, but quicker turnaround, and guess what? They actually get built. For me, this is what drives me. Being able to make a change in this world to improve people's lives for the better. In these last 5 years at AKRF, I've had so many different opportunities. I've been encouraged to be more active in ITE, and I actually, through this, I actually was a leadership ITE grad. I went through this entire program in 2020. It was so much fun. We all met up in Washington, D.C. We were supposed to go to Baltimore together in April 2020, but then we all know what happened. But me and my group and the rest of my class, we all met virtually. It was truly an incredible time going through leadership ITE. Yeah, and that's me. I graduated in August 2020. But through leadership IT, I was able to meet professionals across the country. We have this huge brain trust of professionals, and we're able to share experiences and just ideas, and it's such a great community. That's, I guess, one of the things I want to impart on you all is be active in a professional group, whether that's WTS, ASCE, ITE, but being active and being part of that community will truly change your career. For me, I got my first job because I met my future supervisor at an ITE meeting. I got my second job because I also met someone in an ITE meeting who referred me to my current company. But just being involved, making friends at the community, and just being part of this big family will truly help you, as it's helped me, of course.
Our ITE chapter students, unfortunately, aren't here. Maybe they're online listening, but
I hope
they're
so.
usually very.
I know.
We have a good chapter here.
I met a bunch of them on Saturday at transportation camp. They're a great bunch. Yeah, you can see this is the whole ITE crew of volunteers and executive board members. I think this was a 2019 photo, so maybe that's why Janny's not in this yet.
I see a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah, I know. But a lot of these folks are like peers, and just a lot of these people I consider friends and peers throughout the industry. And again, I really want to encourage you all to get involved, because it will, it changes your career, because you not only have a chance to lead in different volunteer committees like Janny has, but you also have a chance to meet and network and potentially find new jobs. So it's just a great opportunity. So for me, I moved from working on huge projects like the Tappan Zee Bridge to now I do complete streets. This is Quaker Ridge Road in New Rochelle. This is Fenimore and Prospect in Mamaroneck. These are all small villages, towns, cities in Westchester County. This is a development application in the village of Portchester. These are all little projects that I've worked on in the last year. And so it's interesting to see my career move from these huge mega projects down to something smaller. And even though to some, mega projects might be fun and interesting, I just feel like these small projects have really, it's invigorated me and really pushed me in my career. And so, complete streets. I think I've showed you a couple already, but I want to go through why do we want complete streets. First of all, safety. Complete streets are great for roadway safety. It improves pedestrian, bicycle, vehicle safety even. It helps people be able to go to wherever they want to go. It gives people a choice of where they want to be, as well as a way to get there. So it helps with connectivity and connecting communities. Equity is huge here too, because when you have mode choice, you're able to choose where you want to be. You're able to choose your own mode choice, and it gets people on an even playing field. You don't need to have a car, you don't need to be of a certain socioeconomic standing to be able to get to where you need to be able to get to school or work or whatever it is. And finally, climate. Complete streets encourage active transportation, alternative modes of transportation that are not necessarily carbon-based, won't emit carbon into the atmosphere. You won't need to take a car. You could just drive. You don't have to drive. You could just walk. So it's a huge game changer for the climate and reducing our emissions overall. And so, a lot of communities have thought about complete streets, and this is not a new idea. Complete streets have been around for decades, and transportation engineers have worked on complete streets for decades. New York City has had, this is the third iteration of their street design manual, which lays out various design alternatives and complete street improvement measures in New York City. Some of them are a little not, some of them you won't see in New York City, like chicanes. We don't do much chicanes, or nerfs are kind of rare in New York City, but it's something to aspire to for New York City DOT. Federal government is, yes?
What were those words you used?
Nerf?
Chicanes?
Oh, chicane is when, for example, a chicane is when you have a roadway and you're forced to swerve. So for example, that could be, having alternating parking on the sides of the street, so you have to go around parked vehicles, or even little parks or green spaces, and it just makes vehicles have to slow down and go around obstacles in the road. So it's a natural traffic calming feature.
So there actually is one here. It's on Willoughby Street.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Block south of here, yeah.
Very cool.
It's meant to be a shared street, so the traffic calm, so there's pots on either side and like random parking spaces.
Nice.
You might see it if you get on the train at J Street on the southern entrance.
Nice. I'll have to take a look. And a Woonerf was the next one, the other one I mentioned, WOONERF. It's a Dutch concept, I believe, but it's essentially a shared street. And I think an example of that could be Broadway and like 24th or 25th Street, if you've been there. It's like a shared street where trucks can pull up, pedestrians can walk through it, there are city bikes. It's just, they're just different complete street methods that various transportation engineers, municipalities have implemented, mostly internationally at this point, but I guess you have a chicane here, which is so cool. On the federal side, there's a huge push for safe streets for all. And in fact, their Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A, is really, really huge right now. A lot of municipalities are applying for grants to develop a complete streets or an action plan, which helps them say, hey, I've got all of these roads in my municipality. What do we want to improve? How do we want to improve it? The other side of this grant program is you can apply for funding to actually take the idea you wrote in your plan and make it real. So on the federal side, this has been really game-changing for complete streets. Of course, you've got your urban street design guide, and that is your typical, hey, complete streets, this is what you want to do. But the NACDO Urban Street Design Guide lays out every single basic concept for complete streets. And also, Smart Growth America, which is more of like a planning organization as opposed to transportation, has a complete streets framework. And I wanted to show this picture because this is what a complete street is. You want people to be able to walk to where they want to be. You want to be able to accommodate people in wheelchairs, walking, on bikes, transit, walking their dog, or seeing eye dog, or two dogs in the background, or holding a bunny in a wheelchair. Whatever you want to do, complete streets let you get to where you want to be. And it's a lot of green space because in part, green space allows you or forces vehicles to slow down. But their complete streets are really those beautiful streets where you can truly bike down and you can feel safe walking. And so I want you guys to remember this. Just take a look at this, remember it in your head. Complete streets have marked crosswalks. The roads are narrow so that cars are forced to slow down a little. There are protected bike lanes and sidewalks, and overall it's just safer. Now I want to show you something else. What about this? Or this? Or this? So what do you guys think of this street? Thoughts? Anyone? Ugly, good, okay. Yes?
Too much space for cars.
Very, very car-centric, absolutely.
There's no place for bikes.
Exactly, no bikes, almost impossible. So, like, cars will get in your way, cars might even hit you in the road. It's just not a place you want to walk. And in fact, this is Hartsdale Avenue, and this is one of my bigger projects that I've worked on. I've been working on this project since about 2019, so 4 years. This is within the town of Greenburgh in Westchester County, and this is an interesting road. This road is, I pressed a button, I hope you guys can hear me. This road is a major arterial in a residential neighborhood. So high speeds, a lot of trucks, a lot of commuters. It brings you from a main gateway of this community down to a commuter rail station. So you can go from a commercial shopping center, travel down this road southbound, and you hit a commuter station. So it not only experiences peak traffic, but it's also plagued by train traffic. So it has these micro peaks within a peak hour because of train arrivals and departures. It also carries 13,000 vehicles per day, and being one lane in each direction, that's a lot of cars. And sadly, this roadway has experienced a lot of fatalities. In the last 5 or so years, about 4 people have died on this road. And this is a half-mile stretch of road, so this was really shocking for us to hear. We did something about it. Actually, the town of Greenburgh hired us in 2019 to do this huge study of this corridor, of this gateway to the community. And so we came up with various pedestrian and traffic improvements. This was September 2021. We were in the field with our client to survey conditions. As you can see, this is another example of a roadway where long crosswalks, very car-centric. We're doing something about it. In 2022, we had an updated study. We gave them the results of our study. We walked the town through our results step by step, and we showed them exactly what could be possible. So on one hand, this study was about improving roadway safety, improving access to transportation, giving people that mode choice so they can walk to the train station instead of drive because they felt so unsafe walking there. And so through this, we applied for a TAP grant with the town, and we won $5 million for the town to actually put these improvements into place. So I want to highlight that because of the work we did on developing these improvements for them, we were able to assist them on their grant application. We went through every step of the process with them. We sat in on meetings with them, with DOT, and we were able to make sure that they got this grant. So $5 million is the maximum possible TAP grant amount. And TAP is the Transportation Alternatives Program. It's a federal grant that is locally administered by New York State DOT. They choose multiple projects every 2 years, and this year's grant round just opened up in the amount of $165 million statewide. So $5 million of $100 or $200 million is a really big deal. So It is an 80% match, so the town will foot, I think, 2.3 million, and the federal government will foot $5 million, but we are going to construct sidewalk, we're going to construct pedestrian improvements, and actually, I haven't talked about this yet, but there's a special item that, technology item that is involved in here. So, this is the overall timeline of the project. We started in 2019. We were able to win the TAP grant in 2021. And so in 2022, we were able to go through the process of doing design work. 2023, and actually just last week, I was up in the town of Greenberg to present to the public on this project. That was an interesting meeting, by the way. The public was, for the most part, receptive. They really liked the idea of slowing down traffic, of all of these pedestrian improvements. However, there was one member of the public who, and at every single public meeting you'll run into this person, he unfortunately just did not want the town to spend any tax dollars on anything. So he fights them on every step, but we don't need him to agree with us. We just want him to understand what we're doing and push him to see our side. Unfortunately, to dial it back a little bit, in September of just about a month ago, in September, a pedestrian was hit on this roadway. This was in the middle of our design process. What happened was this person wasn't even crossing the road. She was sitting on a bench on a sidewalk, and someone who was allegedly under the influence was allegedly going above the speed limit, went over the curb, hit her while she was sitting on the bench, and she unfortunately passed. This person was a prominent member of the community, and as a result, the town did have multiple meetings with residents. In fact, myself and the design team, we were part of these meetings. And I did this as kind of a public service. I didn't even bill any of my time for this. But we were there to listen to town concerns, listen to their suggestions, and we wrote down all of the constructive items that could potentially be involved in the design. So from that, we decided, hey, we could add bollards, we could add better lighting, but the unfortunate thing is you can't design to prevent something that was really a freak accident, like someone being potentially under the influence. You can't design for that. If anyone here has any ideas, I'm open to that. But we got to bollards, lighting, and other elements for pedestrian safety that could potentially prevent things like this in the future. That incident, that really, I shouldn't call it an incident, I should call it a tragedy. It really set us back because it forced us to take a deeper look at our design. However, I think it gave us a better and it gave us more community agreement to our design, mostly because we ended up including a lot of their suggestions. So from there, we'll move on. We're finishing up the design right now, and hopefully in spring 2025, we'll be able to start construction. And hopefully soon, they'll be able to, residents will be able to feel safe while walking down this corridor. So this is one of the technologies. This is the big technology that I mentioned earlier. But one of the biggest improvements, and this is really what enabled us to implement these pedestrian improvements on the corridor, we are actually adding adaptive traffic control on this corridor, which is really exciting. And I know you folks on the computer, maybe I can move the mouse, no, here. So this is an interesting, this is the part of the corridor that we're adding traffic signals, that we're changing and updating traffic signals. This one is interesting. This traffic signal is at Lewis Avenue. It's not even a full traffic signal, and it by far does not meet federal standards. It's only signalized in one direction, and the other direction is free. It's really odd. So we're actually removing that, and we're moving it down to here, which is Rockledge Avenue. So we are taking away the partial signal and installing a new traffic signal further south. And as a result of that, we're really evening the spacing of signals. We're also upgrading traffic signal equipment, which means, upgraded detectors, better communications, and all of this, including specifically this new spacing, will allow better flow of traffic. Most importantly, the adaptive traffic control system will allow traffic to flow better, especially because we have those little micro peaks.
Are they like fully actuated or?
Yes, it'll be fully actuated on every leg and video actuation, which we're very excited about.
So then the four signal cores, are these four signal cores from the video detection or from more traditional, kind of detect of the?
There is no detection currently.
Okay.
So for those of you on the Zoom, Jenny was asking about existing detection at these intersections. There is no detection. These signals were built in the 80s, and the offsets were set way back in the day. And if any of you guys know traffic signals, offsets are the time between intersections, essentially. Over time, each of these drift because the clocks are not stable. And so over time, the coordination changes. And eventually, you'll run into a situation where you'll hit a green, then a red, then a green, then a red. And it's just really frustrating. And it's all because the technology was never updated and never changed. So thank you for that question. No, overall it just sucks right now. So what we're doing with adaptive traffic control signals will be really game changing. And so, yes.
So you have to do a impact study for?
We did.
Do you
So
have like the same performance measures they always have, like level of service and stuff?
for adaptive,
No,
So-
I mean, just in general, when you do complete streets, do you have better performance measures than what they used to do?
so it's interesting. So when we do traffic studies for complete streets, typically speaking, we just go by normal impacts measures, and because this is Westchester County, we don't go by the same impact criteria as New York City. So we have to make up our own, really is what I'm trying to say. However, we're in close contact with New York City DOT about this, New York State DOT rather. They have accepted mitigations for traffic that include improving sidewalks or adding bus benches or bus shelters in lieu of actually mitigating traffic. However, because we are able to do adaptive traffic signal control, we are essentially mitigating all of the impacts of these improvements because we are enabling better flow of traffic. And one thing I also want to emphasize is better flow and improved traffic does not mean people will be speeding through this corridor. And in fact, we are timing the signals such that you are forced to travel down the corridor at 25 miles per hour. And any faster, you'll hit a red. That's how we're doing it.
So I have additional questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think most of the measure we talk is more or less about mobility improvement, right? But just curious, since this is a complete street, is there any measures more on safety, on maybe quality of life? Because we're saying that this will be benefit for all road users.
Yeah, I'll go through those improvements in a bit, but we are doing a lot of improvements that include shortening crosswalks, curb extensions, like I mentioned earlier, bollards, improved lighting on the corridor, but there are multiple measures in conjunction with the new traffic system, signal system. Yeah. So in terms of the signal system, like I mentioned earlier, we're upgrading the detection, so now it's all camera, and if anyone is aware of MyoVision does a 360 camera that is fisheye, and it allows essentially the traffic control, the signal controller to see 360 at the intersection. And so when this camera looks at the intersection, it'll see anytime there's a vehicle waiting at the approach. So ATCS will adjust things like the cycle length, split, offset. It won't change phase sequencing in this case because that would just confuse drivers. Instead, it'll just change those first 3 parameters to be able to really accommodate in real time the traffic to and from the train station. And in our experience, and in New York State DOT's experience, these systems are really, really helpful when it comes to train stations because if anyone's familiar with Metro North or even Long Island Railroad, when a train arrives, everyone comes or everyone is leaving. So you really hit these like 5-minute peaks that correlate with train arrivals and departures. So overall, this is going to reduce your number of stops. This is going to reduce driver frustration, most importantly. And driver frustration was key to some of the safety issues because there's a lot of aggression, including people driving over the double yellow into oncoming traffic and then back to really overtake others. So hopefully, because of our design, we'll be able to improve safety and quality of life here. So going through some of our improvements, this is the train station, actually. So East Hartsdale Avenue, and I will use the mouse because there are folks on Zoom. East Hartsdale Avenue is this corridor here. And the train station is Aqueduct Road, and it's roughly left on the screen. It's roughly over here, further left. So this is an intersection where you have a lot of pedestrians walking to and from the train station at the moment. There are issues with ADA access because a lot of the ramps are not up to ADA standard. There's a lot of pavement out there. So if you see this red island in the middle, we're proposing extending this island. So originally it was probably about here. And you might be able to roughly see the outline, but it was roughly about there. And we're almost doubling the footprint of it. And by doing that, we're able to shorten this crossing by about 10 feet or so. We're able to shorten this crossing slightly as well, and here too. But overall, what this is going to enable is people will be able to stand here as they wait for the walk signal to come on. And when you stand here, as opposed to back here, cars will be able to see you. And so that in itself is a way to improve pedestrian safety. And that adding these extensions into the road really improve visibility. It gives pedestrians more space to wait so that they're not standing on the pavement like you kind of see in New York City all the time. And this really overall is, and over here we have a curb extension. So again, this is about 8 feet. And so we're overall reducing pedestrian crossing at this leg by approximately 20 feet. So overall, 20 feet, you increase visibility of pedestrians, you reduce the crossing time, and it does wonders for safety. It's a small improvement, but it really changes things. This is another intersection that we're working on, and I'm just going through a handful of the intersections on the corridor today. This was where the fatal crash happened. The person was sitting on a bench approximately over here. However, you can see what happened was the driver was driving this way and hopped on the curb. So our idea is going to be adding bollards around this island that we're extending to be able to prevent something like that from happening. But as you can see, these are our designs. We're actually extending the pavement over here to, again, shorten pedestrian crossing, and here too. So whereas this was probably about a 60, 70-foot crossing, it's now about 30 feet. So it's really going to change your crossing time. One other big change is we're converting this road to one-way. Yes, you had a question, or are you just stretching? Okay, I apologize. So right now this is a two-way street, Rockledge Road. We're converting it to one-way because right now cars can make this as a movement or this, and it's just, this movement alone is a tight turn. Vehicles have gotten hit here because cars have had to take wider turns. So changing this to one-way is going to do a lot for safety and also the traffic signals because you're removing one entire phase from the signal. So this is one of the more drastic changes that we made, including the one-way conversion. So with this one-way conversion, we're converting this section of the road over here to one-way. This rest of the section over here is currently one-way in the same direction. So we're not having a huge impact on travel time for many, only folks who live about here who were once able to turn out this way. However, if they wanted to, they could cut through this way, or they could go all around. But this ties into the next improvement. No, it does not. I did not have a photo of that improvement, I apologize. But this is Rockledge Road is where we are adding the new traffic signal. So we're taking people away from this, exiting from this intersection, and we're moving them up here. And because we're doing that, people will have an easier time exiting this road as well. So again, that's better for drivers, better for driver frustration, and also better for pedestrians because it allows us to reclaim a lot of that space that was once for cars. Columbia Avenue was another one, and this was where a pedestrian was hit about 4 years ago. We're adding an island here because right now you see what a lot of people do is they turn left from East Hartsdale Avenue over here. They turn left and go onto incoming traffic. So there have also been head-on collisions here because of, again, aggressive driving because they want to beat the light. So we're adding an island to be able to force drivers to slow down a little and make that left turn properly. Again, curb extensions, bump outs. I already talked about how this improves visibility, but the biggest improvement is by adding this island, you're not only slowing down vehicles, but you're giving pedestrians a space to queue in the middle. So whereas this was about also a 70 or 80 foot crossing, we're breaking this up and we're also shortening it. So we're reducing pedestrians' vulnerability and also their exposure to vehicles. Yeah, question.
Do you have metrics on like expected crash reductions from some of these factors?
So through the New York State DOT design process, we don't have to look at those metrics. However, so as a result, we did not do it because no one had asked us to. But if you want to look at those metrics, I can refer you to the New York State DOT accident reduction factors. They still call it accidents because they're old school. But New York State DOT maintains an entire record of accident reduction factors, and this is specifically for the state. Are you aware of the rest of the resources for this? Because there's also a federal crash clearinghouse that we've used, but there are so many resources out there. But yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Do you have any other suggestions for resources for crash reduction?
I was just wondering, I get what's happening, I was wondering if you had, this is the actual, it's like quantifiable expected reduction.
Yeah, we didn't do that, unfortunately. What I can tell you though is, the intersection here in the background photo, in terms of crashes, we did calculate crash rates for all sorts of crashes at this intersection. It is 10 times above the statewide average for crashes for an intersection of this type. It is 15 times above statewide average for left turn crashes. So this was big. It's interesting that you brought that up too, because DOT took a look at our report and said, hey, I have an idea. We'll just do split phasing. And so what that means is they are doing, they would be doing the eastbound and westbound approach separately. So northbound and southbound would go concurrently, and then eastbound, and then westbound. So what is currently a 210-second cycle would go from 210, which is approximately 3 minutes, to like 260. Yeah. Yeah, it's horrible for delay at an intersection, and especially an intersection this busy. It would allow the queues to build up, and the queues currently are about a quarter mile in each direction, so it would really get bad. Yeah, we actually, so what we did was we talked New York State DOT down from doing that split phasing. We explained that, hey, the left turn crashes are not an issue for the east and west approaches. It's the north and south approaches. And the north and south approaches are on a major state arterial, and they don't want to split phase that. Understandably, they don't want to do that. Whereas they're going to do signal improvements and we're going to do adaptive traffic control, they're not going to do split phasing anymore, which was a win for us and the town. But thank you for bringing that up. I think if you ever join an agency, you should advocate for them looking into crash mitigation factors because it is super important, and consultants won't do it unless you require it. So, great. So one of the other improvements that we're doing is building a sidewalk. So right now, and actually, let me go into map. I'm bringing up this browser because it is the default browser. I'm not used to this keyboard, I apologize. Okay, so this is Hartsdale. For reference, we are approximately here in Brooklyn. This community is up here near White Plains, which is where I live. This is the corridor, East Hartsdale Avenue. This was the intersection that I had talked about a second ago with the really high crash rates. That is called Four Corners, also known as the intersection of Hartsdale Avenue and Central Avenue in the town. So right now, there is no sidewalk here. This entire corridor, known as West Hartsdale Avenue, there is no sidewalk. There are people walking to and from here. There are approximately 3 schools, including 2 private schools and 1 large public school that's somewhere here, and another school, so 4 schools. This is the middle and high school. And students are actually walking down this corridor to get to East Hartsdale Avenue, to get to the restaurants and Starbucks and everything. And it's really dangerous. I walked this corridor when this project started. We were terrified when walking down. It's just, you walk past these cars that are going 40, 50 miles per hour on this curvy road, and it's just not safe. So the town wanted to add a sidewalk on this side of the road as part of this project, so this is also part of the grant to be able to add this sidewalk here. So now, if you go to one of these 4 schools up here, you can even walk to the train station, go down to the city if you wanted. You can walk to your Starbucks. Or if you're a parent that lives in one of these neighborhoods here, and this is entirely residential, as is this road, if you're a parent living here, you can walk your kids to school, or your kids can walk to school. So adding a sidewalk here was really crucial. And so the village's plan is add sidewalks all along Central Avenue. East Hartsdale Avenue already has sidewalks to get you down to the train station. West Hartsdale, we're adding a sidewalk. The next step is, this is Dobbs Ferry Road. They're also building sidewalks, and here as well. And so once you add a sidewalk here, it connects you to Tarrytown Road / White Plains Road. It connects you to Central Avenue. Secor Road is also on the plan, but the town is planning an overall network of all of these sidewalks. And it's really, really crucial because, again, it's all about giving people mode choice, all about giving people the ability to get to where they want to be. So yeah, we're adding the sidewalk, and it's very exciting. And beyond that, Hartsdale has been my passion project for these last 4 years, but I've also worked on a bunch of other complete streets projects. This is Quaker Ridge Road in New Rochelle. And this project is actually a road diet, which is a component of Complete Streets. But this is a 4-lane road that currently carries 15,000 to 10,000 vehicles per day. 4 lanes is more appropriate for a 30 or 30,000 vehicle roadway. So we're actually reducing it from 4 to 3. I know you may not be able to see it clearly, but it's going to be 1 lane in each direction with a left turn lane in the median. Through this, we're also adding sidewalks and bike lanes. So this corridor is crucial for the city of New Rochelle because there are various houses of worship on the corridor. There are synagogues where if you can't drive to synagogues on a Friday night, you have to walk. So it's going to really allow people to be able to walk safely at night. If you see here, we're adding sidewalks, we're adding bike lanes. It's just really awesome to be able to do this. This is VisSim, if you guys are aware, and it's a microsimulation program. We did a very rough model, and this was more for presentation purposes. Have any of you guys used VisSim in the past? Jenny? No one else? Okay, you have to. VisSim is a tough program. It takes hours to code. It's pretty intensive. This was a really basic one that we punched out in like maybe 10 or 15 hours. But you can kind of see the CAD file overlaid, and you can see the vehicles moving, and you see people crossing as well. But this is the actual proposed signal timing that's going to be there. The Quaker Ridge Road, actually, we did a public meeting for Quaker Ridge Road in, I believe that was 2018. It was January or February 2018. 200 people were in attendance. It was the biggest public meeting I've ever been to. People were getting up there and arguing both sides. I don't want this because traffic is going to be terrible. Or I love this idea. I want to be able to walk my kids to school. Or I was almost hit the other day. You need to do this now. We had all different perspectives and opinions as a result of this project. But we took the ideas, we took the feedback when we were able to refine our design, and we're going to break ground in the next few months on construction, so it's pretty exciting. So if you're ever up in New Rochelle in the next 5 years from now, you'll be able to bike down the corridor. Again, New Rochelle, we've actually done a full Complete Streets plan citywide for the city, and out of that, Quaker Ridge Road was one of those main projects that came out of that, but so was Stratton Road. Stratton Road was a little smaller. There wasn't a whole lot we can do there because it is currently a 2-lane road. It just does not have sidewalks or bike lanes. So the idea is add sharrows, add new sidewalks, but also acquire land for those sidewalks because there is not enough roadway space. It includes some complete street elements, and you can kind of see where the sidewalks will be here. This is an existing sidewalk, but also new crosswalks and new sidewalks over here will be added. This one is an interesting one, and actually the city ended up not going forward with it, unfortunately, but it is out there. The neighbors have been advocating for it, and we've heard a lot of good feedback about this design as well. But again, it reinforces the idea of if you want to walk somewhere, if you want the ability to walk somewhere, you should have the infrastructure to help you. The link is another great one. So New Rochelle, and I will actually pull it up on a map so it makes a little more sense. The city of New Rochelle, and again, context, Brooklyn is here, New Rochelle is over here, so further south. I think it's approximately 10 to 15 miles from Manhattan. So the city of New Rochelle is pretty big. There's a lot of downtown development over here. So if you're ever going up 95, like all of those high rises going up, and there are probably close to 5,000 residential units being added, they're all over here. There are a lot of historically Black and also socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhoods over here on the east end. West End, sorry, and also up here to the north by Lincoln Avenue and Lincoln Park. So what the city wants to do, and my company helped develop the concept plan for this, is instead of having this huge and ugly roundabout and crazy, crazy highway that is way overbuilt, it was actually meant to connect 95 to the Hutchinson River Parkway over here. Never happened. No one wants to go after it. They are taking it out and turning it into this beautiful park. So it's going to be a linear park, and the mayor of New Rochelle has compared it to the High Line. You can see there will be a lot of pedestrian amenities, there will be protected bike lanes, but again, it gives people that mode choice to be able to walk. And this is critical because it connects these disadvantaged neighborhoods to the train station. Because whereas they used to be actually walking down Memorial Highway in the past, where there were no sidewalks and getting hit by cars, it was really bad. They can now walk down this beautiful park and get to the train, get to where they need to be. This is not a complete street by name. It is more of a park, according to the city, but it incorporates so many complete street elements, and it's really reclaiming so much of that roadway space just for pedestrians and bicycles. Yeah, so you can see the full plan here. Unfortunately, during the negotiations with New York State DOT, they had to add back in some travel lanes. So vehicles will still be able to go down this way to North Avenue over here. And also there will be one lane of traffic on this side maintained, but the rest of it you can see is just a gorgeous park with bike lanes all throughout. So again, this was way over designed back in the day. And you're converting it all into park space. Levels of service are going to be hurt a little, as they are by most complete streets projects, and so that's your, your delays will increase. But the residents of New Rochelle have accepted these changes, and they understand that there is a little pain. But overall, over time, what's going to happen is people will shift from driving to walking and biking to get to the train station. Because right now, a lot of this traffic down Memorial Highway are folks getting to the train station. So we do expect to see that mode shift that is really going to normalize some of the traffic here. Yeah. I wanted to take it back to why complete streets. Again, safety. We talked about some of the safety aspects in terms of the gentleman back there who is no longer there had mentioned crash mitigation factors. So you're reducing potentially the number of crashes on these roadways, you're improving pedestrian safety, you're making it safe for pedestrians and bikes to be on this road and get to where they need to be. And you're also giving people a choice of where they need to be, which is key to connectivity. You're connecting communities, you're reconnecting communities with major centers, to major points of interest and also transit centers. This is really an equity method. It is a way to, is equity a verb? It is a way to create equity for all groups to be able to choose their mode of transportation and to be able to get to where they need to be able to get to work or school, most importantly. And again, reducing carbon emissions, giving people that mode choice, and hopefully shift them from carbon-based modes of transportation to walking, biking, something more active, something that does not release emissions. So complete streets are so important. There are so many different ways to implement them. There are a lot of ways to incorporate technology like adaptive traffic signal control. There are a lot of ways for communities to apply for grant funding for these, but it's just important to be out there. If you're a resident, just go out there and advocate for these changes. Be a part of these communities and be active in requesting these from the places where you live. Like if you live in Brooklyn or Queens, go to your borough president's office and say, hey, I want this road to be for pedestrians only, or I want more bike lanes here. If you live in Westchester, talk to me and I will advocate for you. Jersey, same thing. Go to your local township or your local city or whatever it is and talk to the local representatives and let them know that you want complete streets, that you want bike lanes and sidewalks. So that's it. My contact information is here, so feel free to connect with me or reach out. But thank you again for having me. I hope you enjoyed hearing about my projects, complete streets, and also my career. But I'd love to take any questions. Thank you all.
Actually, I'm not sure how else to.
Alright, I was wondering, like, some of the projects, kind of about the scale of how, like, converting one street, in a city to a complete street, like, how much of an impact it can make, versus, like, the New Rochelle, like, a whole citywide plan, I guess, or like, what, is it still, I guess, worth it to just do one street, like, if the whole goal is to do all the streets?
Yeah. So my response to that is everyone has to start somewhere. And sometimes for some communities, it's just way too much of a burden, way too expensive to tackle everything at once. So the way I would recommend it is, if you're just starting out with all of this, get a plan down. There's so many grants you could apply for to get grants to develop these plans. Once you have a plan in place, you could prioritize what you want to do. But it's just important to list out all of these items and make sure you know your community's priorities. Like I said, everyone has to start somewhere. And the way that New Rochelle is doing it is, first, we're developing this great plan. Next, this roadway is great. We have money for this roadway, let's do it. And then this one, that was great too, let's do that. Same thing that Greenberg is doing. They're knocking each of these down and connecting what they're building to create an entire network. So whereas building it all at once would be extremely costly, probably in the 7 to 8 figure range, so like tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. And also it would be painful because it would mean construction everywhere. So it's just easier for communities to do it one at a time. But I love your question. I think it's super important to start somewhere and just keep it going, keep the momentum moving.
I guess as a follow-up, like, kind of what I was thinking too, like, do you see, like, these improvements, like, of complete streets, like, being able to convert kind of a formerly almost completely car-centric city, like, over time into a place that's walkable, or, like, people are choosing walkability in, like, other nodes?
I actually want to add to that.
Yeah.
Is there any post-evaluation of, like, how people shifting mode or?
I'd have to look into that. I haven't personally done any post-implementation studies, but I think USDOT, FHWA have. I'd have to follow up with you on that because I don't know the answer. But it is a slow and gradual change. West Chester, where I'm working, is extremely car-centric. Like, almost everyone owns a car except me and maybe a few of my friends. But it's hard to get people out of that habit of driving everywhere. It is over time teaching them that this is a mode option. For example, I'll give an example. Over COVID, various transit groups, transit groups, or whatever you'll call them, Connecticut Transit and Westchester County B-Line bus, they made their services free. And as a result, they saw a huge bump in ridership. That was a huge change, and that was a behavior change that was in part influenced by the rise in gas prices, because no one wanted to pay $4.50 for a gallon of gas to drive to where they want to be. So there are different factors that can influence mode choice, and building incomplete streets is one of those. It's just unless something like that happens again where gas explodes to $8 a gallon, it's just going to be a slow, gradual change and choice. On the other hand, building complete streets actually attracts residents who want these amenities to be able to travel to where they want to be. So it's kind of induced demand in bringing in new residents as well. So eventually the population will shift to being more walkable, but I think that's more in like the 10 to 30-year range as opposed to very immediate. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great.
We actually have a question from the Zoom
Oh, sure.
attendees. The question is asking, are there plans to improve connectivity between infrastructure vehicles or infrastructure pedestrian in complete street? That's actually one thing that I'm also curious about. I mean, for complete street, I think what you showed, like, I would say like 80% of them are more towards design, changes on the roadway, including a curb out, curb extension, like pedestrian islands. There's this adaptive signal saying, but are there any more kind of like advanced like ITS technologies, connected vehicle, connected infrastructure, for the future? I mean, maybe not now, but like.
So the one thing I can say is we're planning the traffic signals and communications to be able to accommodate those technologies in the future. Like they're adding extra wire and extra, I think it's ICs, interconnectors. I don't know the terminology because I don't design these things personally. But they're adding the backbone to be able to upgrade to connected vehicles in the future. I do really like that question. I think it's important for us to think about connected vehicles and better serving them. So it's something that we've considered and thought about, and something that New York State DOT also has a standard for in terms of having extra wiring and ports to be able to accommodate it. But unfortunately, we just don't have any additional sensors. I think the best we did was adding camera sensors in here, and also the adaptive traffic control system, which is cloud-based or software-based and uses AI to be able to detect. But in terms of like actual vehicle connectivity, Bluetooth and all of that, maybe in the future, just not now. And actually, there were just recently SMART grants that were out, which I think we've spoken about, Janny. SMART grants to be able to implement those technologies. So in a future round, we will likely go after these grants with the community. Yeah? So we have a question.
Yeah, so thanks for the presentation. I was wondering more generally what your thoughts were about like emergency vehicles. So, especially with the traffic calming or reducing speeds. So, are there accommodations for emergency vehicles?
Yeah, I'll go back to, I scrolled back too far. I'll go back to the East Hartsdale corridor. First of all, for the link, because we are maintaining a lane of traffic, we're able to accommodate emergency vehicles still. And also the various emergency responders understand this project and they're in support of it. Hartsdale, this is the study corridor again, East Hartsdale Avenue and also West Hartsdale. There is a fire station right here. There's also a sorry, the zoom is way too strong on this mouse. Or maybe I'm too excited to zoom in and out, I'm not sure. There's another fire station that is approximately, sorry, it's about here. Yeah, it's about here, here it is. So there are two fire stations that are along the corridor. We have kept them in the loop for every step of the way to make sure they understand our design and they agree with it. Another upgrade we have on the signals is preemption. And this is something that police, EMS, and fire have talked to us about. They want preemption on each of these signals so that, and if, I'll explain preemption. It's when a traffic signal senses that there's an emergency vehicle at the intersection, it gives them priority and it'll change the traffic signal to be able to accommodate them first as opposed to other traffic. So preemption will be all up and down this corridor, so that'll be very good. Another point of contention at one point was the one-way conversion. So the fire department was very concerned because currently today they're not able to turn in to this road, Rockledge Road. They have to go down the road, turn around over here, and then turn right. And that's just a crazy roundabout way to respond to an emergency that's over here. So we talked with the fire department, and instead, so what we did was we ran auto turn tests. Auto turn is a program that runs the heavy vehicles or any vehicle's turning radius to make sure that a vehicle will be able to make a turn without conflicting with infrastructure. So we did auto turn at every single one of these intersections to make sure that even with the curb extensions and these improvements, that their vehicles will still be able to access and travel through the intersection. So their largest fire vehicle will be able to turn into here. They'll still be able to turn out of here, surprisingly. And also a fire department vehicle, if they choose, could go down this private road to respond to any emergencies here, as opposed to going all the way down here and up. So adding this traffic signal here and also working with the local community group to remove speed bumps from this road was key to getting the fire department to sign on to our design. But I appreciate your question.
I think things we're over the top, we're gonna just
Oh.
conclude over here, but
Oh, I
thank
apologize.
Elaine again
Yeah.
for giving you very detailed introduction of Complete Street project, and I think Elaine will stay here for a few more minutes, so if you have any question about career, industry, or women leaders, feel free to talk to Elaine.